are some of the warning signs of bad leadership? In today's video, a business coach reacts to Joe Biden's speech on Afghanistan. What's going on in Afghanistan right now is heart-wrenching, and I have felt sick every time I have watched these images. I have actually postponed making this video for a couple of days because it's very raw emotionally, and I know that we are all really charged in how we feel about this. It's terrible what's happening over there, and those images are just so hard to watch. However, I decided to do this video anyway because I do feel like in failure is where some of our biggest leadership lessons occur. Now, this is not a Biden bash. I have a list of things that I feel like he did well inside of his speech also. It's kind of a mixed bag. If you're new to the channel, I'm Amy Walker. I am a small business strategist, and we share with you strategies to help you get more clients, improve your sales and marketing, and become a better leader. So let's jump into it.
Good afternoon. I want to speak today to the unfolding situation in Afghanistan, the developments that have taken place in the last week, and the steps we're taking to address the rapidly evolving events.
This is good. He's showing people what he's going to lay out, which whenever you have to have a hard conversation, it's good to let people know what's coming and set the expectations.
And moving quickly to execute the plans we had put in place to respond to every constituency, including and contingency, including the rapid collapse we're seeing now. I'll speak more in a moment.
This is also good. He's not skirting around or trying to downplay the seriousness of what's going on.
About the specific steps we're taking, but I want to remind everyone how we got here and what America's interests are in Afghanistan. We went to Afghanistan almost 20 years ago.
This is an important part of any conversation addressing failure, is to look back and to restate some of the anchors. Here's where we were. These were our objectives. And then measure against what everybody knows and embraces at where we are now. So that process of looking back and kind of laying it out is important in every conversation around failure.
And that's why, as president, I'm adamant that we focus on the threats we face today in 2021, not yesterday's threats.
Re-clarifying what the goals are when you're facing a failure is also a really good move to make. By the way, most of his good things happened at the beginning, and then it gets a little uglier from there.
When I came into office, I inherited a deal that President Trump negotiated with the Taliban.
Anyone feel like he's about to blame someone?
U.S.
It was
forces
his
would
fault.
be out of Afghanistan by May 1, 2021, just a little over 3 months after I took office. U.S. forces had already drawn down during the Trump administration from roughly 15,500 American forces.
Passing blame is my #1 warning sign of bad leadership. Here's the reality. Did he inherit a hard situation? Yes, he did. No questions about it. Like, that was a hard situation. President Trump had a hard situation. President Obama had a hard situation. President Bush had a hard situation. All of them had hard situations. But this idea that we can hold on to the successes that we had and then pass the blame away, no, you either don't get either one or you take them both. And in good leadership, really, you got to take them both. And in fact, I think in the best leadership, the best leaders have a tendency to pass the win and take the blame. That they will say, you know, we all created this together. I want to give the credit to all of you. Can you imagine that happening in politics? I want to give credit to my predecessor for doing all of these different things, but I'm going to take ownership for the mess that we're in right now because I'm the leader today. It never happens in politics, but guys, this does not work in your business. You have got to accept accountability for what's happening because there were other choices that he could make, right? Maybe they were worse choices, and that's what he thinks, that the other choices were worse, but there were other choices. So to bring someone else into this conversation and say that, like, well, it wasn't my fault, I couldn't do anything about it, that just does not work for me.
And the Taliban was at its strongest militarily since 2001. The choice I had to make as your president was either to follow through on that agreement or be prepared to go back to fighting the Taliban.
It is a hard choice. I give him that.
There was only a cold reality of either following through on the agreement to withdraw our forces or escalating the conflict and sending thousands more American troops back into combat in Afghanistan.
Now, this is a good thing that he's doing. He is standing behind his decision, and he is telling you why he's standing behind his decision. What is better than what he's doing is he's passing blame, and then he's taking, accountability for the positive parts of it. It's better and better received by your team when you bring them both together. Like, listen, guys, we're going to talk about what we're doing and why we're doing it, why it's important, but we're also going to address all of the things that really stink about this situation that we're in. And we have not done everything perfectly, and there's been a lot of failures in the process. So reframing that would really incite better confidence in your team members.
I stand squarely behind my decision. After 20 years, I've learned the hard way that there was never a good time to withdraw U.S. forces. That's why we're still there. We were clear-eyed about the risks. We planned for every contingency, but I always promised the American people that I will be straight with you. The truth is, this did unfold more quickly than we had anticipated.
This is good right here. He's being honest about the flaws and honest about the failures. I wish that it didn't flow in and out, but be honest, be transparent. That's important.
So what's happened? Afghanistan political leaders gave up and fled the country.
Passing blame.
The Afghan military collapsed.
So what's the difference between passing blame and stating facts? Because these might be facts. The difference is it's the flow of the conversation. When you're addressing hard things and it always goes to other people's behavior, that's passing blame. When you're addressing hard things and you're talking about them interspersed, here's the facts and here's where we see that we dropped the ball. That's when you're discussing facts and having accountability. It's the absence of here where we dropped the ball that makes it passing blame, even if all those things are true.
Here's what I believe to my core. It is wrong to order American troops to step up when Afghanistan's own armed forces would not.
This is good. Clear, bold statements about your values will help people to understand what motivated you to make your decisions, and that is a good thing to do.
And our true strategic competitors, China and Russia, would love nothing more than the United States to continue to funnel billions of dollars in resources and attention into stabilizing Afghanistan indefinitely.
I am not a fan of this. Fear-mongering to defend your failures is not a good thing. So are there a lot of things to be afraid of in the world? Yes. Can you have separate discussions where you talk about those things? Yes. But to plant a seed of fear and then use that fear of what could happen to excuse what did happen is never a strong leadership quality.
To clean up the corruption in government so the government could function for the Afghan people. We talked extensively about the need for Afghan leaders to unite politically. They fail to do any of that.
This one is so hard because part of being a good leader is that you actually have to allow people space to step up and to fail. Now, again, this is so much more complicated than in our businesses because lives are at stake and people are going to die and women's rights will be taken away. And there are so many terrible things because of this principle. But this is actually a leadership principle that you have to give people space. You have to give them responsibility. You have to give them space. You have to allow them to fail. And then you have to allow them to take responsibility for the consequences of their failure. Now, on the flip side of this coin, I do think that it is a leadership failure to assume that other people will take care of problems that are yours. It is a leadership principle to allow people, let's go over the difference, allowing people to have their responsibility, giving them ownership of that, letting them fail or letting them succeed and learn from the experience and deal with the consequences, good leadership. But there are some problems that are ours to take care of, and expecting someone else to do the thing that only we can do is poor leadership. It's very challenging as you're looking at the situation because it's so complex to figure out what is what. But in my gut level, as I listen to him, I feel like some of the things that he is saying others should have done were actually things that he should have done. I'm not a military strategist. I'm not a political strategist. I can't tell you what's what. I can just tell you in my gut that there are some things that I feel like he had assumed somebody else was going to manage and it wasn't going to come back to him, when in reality it was his deal. He should have taken care of it.
Those are the mistakes we cannot continue to repeat, because we have significant vital interest in the world that we cannot afford to ignore. I also want to acknowledge how painful this is to so many of us. The scenes we're seeing in Afghanistan.
Right here. Acknowledging that your decisions and the situation going on is causing other people hurt. That is ownership and accountability, and I always love to see that.
And I came to understand firsthand what was and was not possible in Afghanistan. So now we're focused on what is possible. We will continue to support the Afghan people.
This is good. Clearly stating what you will and won't do and how you're going to move forward out of a bad situation is a positive.
The events we're seeing now are sadly proof that no amount of military force would ever deliver a stable, united, secure Afghanistan, as known in history as the graveyard of empires. What's happening now could just as easily happen 5 years ago or 15 years in the future.
This is another one I don't love. Justifying your failures and making it sound like you did it on purpose. So he's going into saying, this hard situation that we're having, we could have had it then, we could have had it then, we could have had it then. So at least we were planning for it now. But this, according to everybody's reports, is not going how they planned it to go. And I felt like that part of the speech got very glossed over. The fact that they were really shocked by what happened. So there's one other thing in here that I wrote down in my notes after the first one, which is just looking out for your interest as the top priority instead of a broader version of interest. And whenever you get really narrow in who you look out for, you tend to create collateral damage. And that's probably a terrible term to use, because right now there is a lot of collateral damage. But when you're really focused on you winning and you getting what is best for you, you tend to damage a lot of relationships in business. And so when you can create a more broad sense of what's right and create yourself as one of the things that needs to get your way, but not entirely, it creates a better space of compromise. You're able to get more accomplished. My husband teases me that I always get what I want, but in reality, it's that I'm always looking for ways for multiple people to win. And so, yes, I win in the process, but I create a lot of wins for other people at the same time. Now, let me review some of the things that I felt like he did well that we may not have mentioned yet. There were parts in that speech where he was honest about our flaws, and I liked that. He did state his definition of what was right and wrong, which is important because your team does not have the same definition of common things like integrity. We all have integrity, but every person on your team defines that differently. So as a leader, you have to state what is your definition of right and wrong, because it sets the context for how you're making your decisions. I went into this speech biased. I really did. I went in thinking I was going to hate it all. But this probably the highlight of the whole thing is that we cannot keep doing what is not working. And I think that is really the strength of what he is doing right here. And the biggest leadership win is he's unwilling to keep doing what is not working. So a heartbreaking situation. And I would encourage all of you to find a way to get involved, whether that's figuring out what's going on inside of your state, with refugees. Do you have a refugee camp inside of your state? If so, they're going to need a lot of help and support. Things like driving people around, helping kids get registered for school, helping buy school supplies. I have lived in a foreign country not speaking the language, and very, very simple things like explaining how to get on a bus. It's different, and not speaking the language, there's going to be a lot of need locally, and you can go and volunteer inside of those camps, unloading boxes of food. So I feel like everybody can help, either in time, or in money. And you probably have more of one than the other. And so whichever way that you can, I encourage you to get involved, and we'll even drop some links in of organizations that would be good to support. In the end, there are times in life and in business when it is a lose-lose situation. Like there's not really a way to come out a clear winner. How do you handle the failures? How do you emerge from the failure as a better leader who has more trust and more support from the people that you led into the failure? Because failure is going to happen. It's an inevitable part of business and leadership. But I have fallen flat on my face in business and addressed it in like a really honest way of like, here's where we were, here's where we're trying to get to, here's the things we did right, here's what we straight up did wrong, and this is why we are where we are, and let's work together to pull ourselves out of it. And like I've come out of that with stronger relationships with my team, and my team trusts me more at the end of it, and we do figure it out. If you would like to see more Business Coach Reacts videos, go ahead and check out the playlist. All right, my business friends, thanks so much for being here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification so you can get notified every time a new video comes out. Thanks, everyone.